Do you really not recognize me? Lincoln Vance didn't answer right away. For a moment, he simply looked at her. Then, without hesitation. No. The word came out certain. Who are you? He asked, his voice controlled. Precise. And why are you standing in front of my garage this late at night thinking I'm someone you know? My mom's name is Sarah, she said softly. And I'm Maya. Lincoln's brow tightened. You're my uncle, she continued. You're my mom's brother. The words landed, but they didn't settle. I think you're mistaken, Lincoln said. Maya shook her head quickly. No, she whispered. I remember you. That made him pause. She lifted the photograph slightly, hesitating for just a second. Then she stepped forward and held it out to him. Please look. Lincoln hesitated, but took it. The paper felt thin, old, handled too many times. He turned it toward the harsh yellow security light, and everything shifted. There he was, younger, less guarded, standing in a place far removed from the life he now lived, leaning against his first Harley. And beside him, a woman, dark-haired, smiling, familiar in a way that struck deeper than recognition. Sarah. Lincoln's breath slowed. He hadn't said her name out loud in years. You kept this? He murmured more to himself than to her. My mom did, Maya said. She said if I ever needed help, I should find you. Lincoln stared at the photograph a moment longer, then lowered it slightly, his gaze returning to the girl. Something inside him had shifted, but not enough. I've been looking for you, he said suddenly. The words surprised even him. Maya blinked. For 2 years, Lincoln continued, his voice tightening just slightly. After I came to see your mother, I tried to find that apartment again. You were gone. That part was true. He had gone back once, then twice, and then less and less, until eventually, not at all. They said the tenants moved out, he added. No forwarding address, no records. Maya's fingers curled in the hem of her denim jacket. We had to leave, she said quietly. Lincoln's eyes stayed on her. Why? She hesitated, then answered in the simplest way she could. My mom lost her job, Maya said. We couldn't pay rent, we moved a lot. We stayed with people sometimes, she continued. Sometimes we didn't. Lincoln felt something tighten in his chest. And now? He asked. Maya looked down briefly, then back up at him. My mom is sick, she said. She's been sick for a while, Maya added. But it got worse. She can't work anymore. She shifted her weight slightly, as if the dirt ground beneath her wasn't entirely steady. We don't have money, she said. Not for doctors, not for medicine. My mom told me where to find you, Maya said. She remembered the shop's name. She wrote it down for me. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper, worn, creased, nearly torn at the edges. I followed it, she said. I asked people. I walked. Lincoln looked at the paper, then at her. You came here alone? He asked. Maya nodded. I didn't know where else to go. Silence stretched between them. In front of him, a child carrying a piece of a life he had left unfinished. I thought maybe. Maya hesitated, her voice softening. Maybe you'd remember me. Lincoln looked down at the photograph again, at the man he used to be, at the sister he hadn't protected, at the promise he hadn't kept. Then he looked back at Maya, and for the first time he didn't see a stranger. He saw a consequence. Where is she? He asked. This time there was no distance left in his voice. What happens if I tell you? She asked. Lincoln exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening just enough to show the effort it took to keep his voice steady. "It means I go there," he said. "Now." Maya blinked, as if the answer had come faster than she expected. "You won't call anyone?" she asked. "Not yet." "You won't send someone else?" Lincoln shook his head. No, that seemed to matter more than anything else so far. Maya nodded once, almost to herself, then unfolded the small piece of paper in her hands. The creases were deep. The ink slightly smudged in places as if it had been folded and unfolded too many times to count. She held it out to him. Lincoln took it, an address short, incomplete, the kind that only made sense if you already knew the rough side of Austin. He recognized the area immediately. "Is this where you live?" he asked. Maya nodded. For now, the words were too practiced. Lincoln glanced toward Bear, his mechanic, who had stepped out of the shop bay but remained respectfully distant. "Get the truck ready," Lincoln said. Bear didn't ask questions. He simply nodded and moved. The yard dog hesitated near the chain-link gate. "Boss, should we notify?" "No," Lincoln repeated, sharper this time. Lincoln looked back down at Maya. She was still waiting. As if this could still disappear. As if he could still change his mind. "We're going," he said. Only then did something in her shoulders shift. The heavy truck door opened with a soft click. Lincoln gestured slightly. "Get in." Maya hesitated just long enough to show she wasn't used to being invited into vehicles like this. Then she climbed in carefully, as if she might break something just by touching it. Lincoln followed, closing the door behind him. Maya sat stiffly near the edge of the leather seat, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her eyes moving quickly over everything. The custom dash, the tinted windows, the small details that marked a world she had never been part of. She didn't touch anything, didn't lean back, didn't ask questions. The truck began to move. At first, neither of them spoke. The heavy iron gates opened slowly behind them, sliding apart with a low, mechanical hum. "And just like that, you walked here?" Lincoln asked after a few minutes. Maya nodded. "I took a bus first," she said. "Then I walked." "How long?" She shrugged slightly. "I don't know." "A while." Lincoln studied her for a moment. "You didn't get lost." "I almost did," she admitted. "But I asked people." "What people?" She glanced out the window. "Anyone who didn't look too busy." That answer stayed with him longer than it should have. The truck moved deeper into the Texas heat, the clean lines of hill country order giving way to something more crowded, more worn. Streetlights flickered, buildings grew closer together. Storefronts changed less polished, more practical. Some were closed, some never seemed to open. Maya shifted slightly in her seat, her eyes following the passing streets with quiet recognition. "You've been here before," Lincoln said. "Yes." Her voice softened. "This is closer." Lincoln leaned back slightly, his gaze moving out the window. He had seen places like this before. "My mom didn't want me to come alone," Maya said suddenly. Lincoln looked at her. "She said to wait," Maya continued. "She said maybe it would get better." A small pause. It didn't. If this moment touched you, take a second to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments where you are watching from. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and stay with us for more. The words were simple, but they carried something heavier than frustration. "What kind of sick?" Lincoln asked. Maya hesitated. "I don't know the word," she said. "She coughs a lot. And sometimes she can't breathe right." Lincoln's expression tightened slightly. "How long has it been like that?" "A while. How long is a while?" Maya thought about it. Since winter, she said. Lincoln looked away. Winter had been months ago. The truck turned onto a narrower street, then another. The pavement grew uneven, the buildings older, the lights fewer. Maya leaned forward slightly. "It's coming up," she said. Bear slowed the heavy vehicle. "Where?" Lincoln asked. "There," Maya pointed. It wasn't a building, more like what was left of one. Paint peeling, windows dim, a single light flickering somewhere inside. The truck came to a stop. For a moment, no one moved. Lincoln stared at the structure in front of him. This was where she lived. This was where Sarah had been all this time. Maya reached for the door. Lincoln's hand moved instinctively. "Wait. I should have found you," he said quietly. The word surprised him. Maya didn't respond right away. Then, softly, "You're here now." It wasn't forgiveness. Not exactly, but it was something close enough to matter. Lincoln nodded once, then opened the door. The humid Austin night air hit heavier here, sharper, less forgiving. He stepped out, his heavy boots crunching on gravel, then turned back toward Maya. "You stay close to me," he said. She nodded. "I will." The hallway smelled faintly of damp wood and something older, like air that hadn't moved in years. Lincoln stepped inside first, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. The ceiling light flickered once, then steadied into a weak yellow glow that barely reached the corners of the narrow corridor. The walls were scuffed, painting and thin curls near the baseboards. Somewhere deeper inside, a pipe rattled softly, then fell quiet again. Behind him, Maya stepped in without hesitation. This was her world. She didn't pause to look around, didn't react to the heat or the silence. She simply moved forward, her small hand brushing lightly against the wall, as if following something familiar in the dark. "This way," she said. Lincoln closed the door behind them. The sound echoed more than it should have. He followed her down the hallway, each step slower than the last. Not because he was unsure of where to go, but because something about this place resisted him. Not physically, emotionally, like it didn't belong to him, like he didn't belong in it. They reached a door near the end. Maya didn't knock. She pushed it open. The room inside was small, too small for what it held. A single bed pushed against the wall. A chair beside it. A table cluttered with medicine bottles, some empty, some half-used, none organized in any way that suggested proper care. And on the bed, Sarah Lincoln stopped. Not abruptly, not dramatically, just completely. She looked smaller than he remembered, thinner. Her skin carried a dullness that no amount of rest could fix. Her hair, once full and alive, now lay loosely around her shoulders, strands clinging to her sweaty face as if even gravity had become too much. For a moment, she didn't move. Then her eyes opened slowly and found him. There was no confusion in them, no surprise, just a quiet recognition that settled almost immediately. "You made it," she said, her voice rough, barely above a breath. Lincoln didn't answer right away. He stepped forward instead, one step, then another, until he stood at the edge of the bed, looking down at someone he had once known well enough to call family, and then had chosen not to. He started, but the word didn't finish, because nothing he could say would fit into this moment. Sarah watched him, her gaze steady despite the exhaustion written across her face. "You look the same," she murmured faintly. "Just more leather and less smiles." It wasn't a joke, not really, but there was something in her tone that reminded him of who she used to be. Lincoln let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh, but didn't quite reach it. "You don't," he said quietly. Sarah smiled. Just slightly, I figured. A silence followed. Heavy, not with anger, but with everything that had never been said. Maya moved closer to the bed, climbing up just enough to sit beside her mother without disturbing her too much. "I found him," she said softly. Sarah's eyes shifted briefly to Maya, then back to Lincoln. "I knew you would," she whispered. Lincoln's hands moved slightly at his sides, uncertain, unpracticed in a space like this. "What happened?" he asked. The question sounded too simple. "Too late?" Sarah exhaled slowly. "Life," she said. A small pause. "Turns out it doesn't get easier just because you expect it to." Lincoln glanced at the table beside the bed, picking up one of the bottles. The label was faded. The prescription date was months old. "This isn't being managed," he said. "No," Sarah replied. "Why didn't you go to a hospital?" She gave a faint, tired smile. "With what money?" Lincoln's jaw tightened. "You could have called you," she finished for him. There was no accusation in her voice. That made it worse. "I didn't have your number," she added. "And even if I did, I wasn't sure you'd answer." The words landed quietly, but they stayed. Lincoln set the bottle back down. "I came back," he said. "After that day, I tried to find you." "I know," Sarah said. He looked at her. "You?" "No." She nodded faintly. "The landlord mentioned it," she said. "Said some biker in a heavy cut came by asking questions." A small breath. We had already left. Lincoln looked away. Of course they had. Timing had never been his strength when it came to things that mattered. "I should have kept looking," he said. "Yes," Sarah replied. Not harsh, not forgiving, just true. The room fell quiet again. Maya's small hand slipped into her mother's, holding it gently, carefully, as if she had learned exactly how much pressure it could take. "She got worse," Maya said softly, looking at Lincoln now. "I tried to help," Lincoln nodded once. "I can see that." His gaze moved back to Sarah. "How long have you been like this?" Sarah hesitated. "Long enough," she said. "That's not an answer. It's the one I have." Lincoln exhaled slowly, running a calloused hand through his hair. The thick air in the room felt too still, too heavy, like it had been waiting for something to change and didn't know how. "Can you stand?" he asked. Sarah let out a faint breath that almost sounded like amusement. "That's ambitious. I'm serious." "I know," she said. "That's what makes it funny." Lincoln didn't smile. Instead, he stepped closer. "We're going to a hospital," he said. Sarah's eyes shifted slightly. "No." The word was quiet, but firm. Lincoln stilled. "That's not optional. It is for me." Maya looked between them, her grip tightening slightly. "Mom, I'm not leaving like this," Sarah said, her voice gaining just enough strength to hold its ground. "I don't have insurance. I don't have you have me," Lincoln cut in. The words came sharper than intended, but they didn't take them back. Sarah stared at him longer this time, as if trying to decide whether that sentence meant anything at all. "That didn't help much last time," she said quietly. Lincoln didn't flinch. He absorbed it because she wasn't wrong. "I'm here now," he said, not defensive, not apologetic, just present. Another silence. Then Maya spoke, her voice small but steady. "Please," that was all, one word, but it carried everything neither adult could say properly. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, something in her resistance had shifted, not gone, but softened. "I don't want her to see me like this," she said. Lincoln glanced at Maya. She already does, he replied gently. That settled it. Sarah exhaled slowly. Then, after a moment, help me sit up. Lincoln moved immediately, careful, deliberate, as if he understood finally that this wasn't something he could rush. That every second mattered now. Not for the club, not for control, but for something far simpler, for someone he should have never left behind, and someone who had come back for him anyway. Sarah's weight was lighter than Lincoln expected. That was the first thing that unsettled him when he helped her sit up carefully, sliding one tattooed arm behind her shoulders, the other steadying her arm. There was almost nothing there to hold. Not in the way a person should be, not in the way someone who had once stood strong, defiant, and unshaken in the face of being left behind should feel. She winced slightly as she moved, her breath catching halfway through the motion. Easy, Lincoln murmured, his gruff voice lower now, instinctively gentler. I'm fine, Sarah whispered. She wasn't. They all knew it, but no one said it out loud. Maya shifted closer on the bed, her small hand still wrapped around her mother's. She didn't try to help physically. She had already learned where her strength ended. But her presence never wavered. I've got you, Lincoln said. The words came naturally this time, not rehearsed, not distant, real. Sarah glanced at him briefly, something unreadable passing through her expression. Careful, she said faintly. You're starting to sound like you mean that. Lincoln didn't respond because he did. That was the problem. Once Sarah was sitting upright, the room seemed to shift around them. Not brighter, not better, just more urgent, as if standing still any longer would make everything worse. We need to move, Lincoln said. Sarah nodded once, though even that small motion seemed to cost her. Maya slipped off the bed and quickly reached for a thin flannel shirt hanging on the back of the chair. She'll get cold, Maya said, holding it up. Lincoln took it from her without hesitation and helped Sarah into it, careful not to pull too hard, careful not to rush. Every movement felt deliberate now, measured, as if the wrong move might undo something fragile. Shoes? He asked. Maya moved again, this time toward a corner where a pair of worn boots sat beside the wall. They're here, she said. Lincoln knelt slightly, his heavy leather creaking, something he hadn't done in years for anyone, and helped Sarah slide her feet into them. The laces were frayed, uneven, but he tied them anyway, tightening them just enough to hold. For a brief second, his rough hands paused. A memory brushed against him, distant but sharp, tying his own boots before hitting the road. Someone watching? Someone who never had the same pair twice. He pushed the thought away. Not now. Can you stand? He asked again. Sarah gave a faint, humorless smile. Let's find out. With Maya on one side and Lincoln on the other, they helped her to her feet. Her knees buckled slightly. Lincoln tightened his grip instantly. I've got you, he repeated. This time, Sarah didn't comment. She just nodded. That was enough. The hallway felt longer on the way out. Not physically, emotionally. Each step Sarah took was slow, uneven, her breathing shallow, and inconsistent. Maya stayed close, watching every movement as if memorizing it, ready to react if anything went wrong. Lincoln adjusted his pace without thinking. For once, nothing about this moment could be rushed. When they reached the door, Maya pushed it open first. The Texas night air hit them immediately, muggier, sharper, cleaner than the air inside, but not kinder. Lincoln guided Sarah carefully down the short steps, his grip firm but controlled. Bear had already stepped out of the truck, moving quickly toward them, his usual rough composure replaced by something more alert. Boss, open the back, Lincoln said. No explanation, no delay. Bear nodded and moved. The heavy door opened wide. Lincoln helped Sarah inside first, supporting her as she lowered herself onto the seat. Maya climbed in beside her immediately, pressing close, her small hand finding her mother's again without hesitation. Lincoln followed, closing the door behind them. "Hospital," he said. Bear didn't ask which one. He already knew the best in Austin. The truck pulled away from the curb, this time faster, more urgent. Inside, the silence felt different. Not empty, tense, alive with everything that hadn't been said. Sarah leaned back slightly, her head resting against the seat, her eyes half closed. Maya watched her closely. "Stay awake," she whispered. Sarah gave the smallest of smiles. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. But her voice didn't quite support the promise. Lincoln reached forward, tapping the center console. "Call ahead," he instructed Bear. "Tell them we're 10 minutes out. I want a trauma team ready." "Yes, boss." His tone had changed. It wasn't the cold authority from before. It was sharper now, focused, directed. This was the world he knew, the one where things moved because he said they should. But this time, it wasn't about club business. Lincoln glanced at Sarah, at the way her breathing stuttered between steady and strained, at the way Maya leaned into her as if trying to hold her in place just by staying close. "How long since she's eaten?" he asked. Maya hesitated. "A little yesterday," she said. "What about today?" Maya shook her head. Lincoln's jaw tightened. He reached for a bottle of water from the cooler compartment and handed it over. "Small sips," he said. Maya nodded and helped Sarah take a little, careful not to rush her. "Thank you," Sarah murmured faintly. Lincoln didn't respond with words. He simply watched. For the first time in years, he was paying attention to something that couldn't be solved with a loud engine and distance. The Austin city lights passed by outside the window, flickering across the glass like fragments of a world he had always moved through without truly seeing. Until now. "My mom said you'd help," Maya said quietly. Lincoln looked at her. She said, "You weren't a bad person," Maya continued. "Just the word lingered." "Busy? Such a simple excuse. Such a dangerous one." Lincoln exhaled slowly. "Sometimes," he said, his voice low, "people use being busy to avoid things they don't want to face." Maya frowned slightly, trying to understand. "Like what?" Lincoln looked at Sarah, then back at Maya, like responsibility. The truck turned sharply, accelerating as the hospital came into view ahead. Bright lights, wide doors, a place built for urgency. For moments like this, Sarah's fingers tightened weakly around Maya's. "Hey," Maya whispered. "We're here." The heavy vehicle slowed, then stopped. Before Bear could even step out, Lincoln was already opening the door. "Help is... he's coming," he said. And for the first time, it sounded like a promise he intended to keep. The hospital doors slid open before they even reached them. Bright white lights spilled outward, cutting through the warm night like something sterile and unforgiving. It erased shadows. It erased hesitation. Lincoln stepped forward first, his hand already raised in a signal he didn't need to explain. "They're here," someone said. 2 nurses moved quickly, pushing a gurney into position. A doctor followed. Mid-40s, focused, already assessing before a single question was asked. "What do we have?" the doctor said. "Female, mid-30s, Lincoln answered, his gruff voice steady, controlled. "Severe respiratory distress, prolonged without treatment, limited intake, unknown full history." The doctor nodded once. "Let's move." They transferred Sarah carefully. She barely reacted, her eyes half open, her breathing shallow and uneven. Maya stepped back just enough to let them work, but her hand didn't leave her mother's until the last possible second. "Mom!" Sarah's fingers tightened faintly in response. "I'm right here," Maya whispered. Lincoln stood close behind her, one calloused hand resting lightly on her shoulder, not guiding, not holding, just there. The gurney moved fast down the hallway into the light. "Sir, we'll need you to wait here," one of the nurses said as they reached a set of double doors. Lincoln nodded once. He knew this part. He had been here before with injured brothers. Different circumstances. Same door, same feeling. The doors swung shut, and just like that, they were on the outside. Maya stood still for a moment, staring at the closed doors as if they might open again if she didn't look away. "They're going to help her," Lincoln said quietly. Maya didn't answer. "Not right away." "Then they have to," she whispered. It wasn't hope. It was necessity. Lincoln guided her gently toward a row of chairs along the wall. "Sit," he said. She obeyed, climbing onto the edge of the chair, her boots not quite touching the floor, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Still controlled, too controlled, Lincoln sat beside her, his large frame taking up space, leaving just enough space not to overwhelm, but close enough that she wouldn't feel alone. For a while, neither of them spoke. The hospital moved around them. Footsteps, distant voices, the soft beeping of machines echoing through the corridors. Life happening indifferently. After a few minutes, Maya spoke. "Are they going to ask for money?" The question came out quiet. "Careful." Lincoln turned his head slightly toward her. "No," he said. Maya looked at him. "They always do," she said, not accusing, just stating a fact she had learned. Lincoln shook his head. "Not tonight." She studied him for a moment. "Because of you?" "Yes." Another pause. "Is that okay?" she asked. Lincoln exhaled slowly. "Yes," he said again. "It's okay." Maya nodded once, as if accepting that answer for now. Then she looked back at the doors. "I tried to help her," she said softly. Lincoln didn't interrupt. "I made her soup once," Maya continued, "but I think I burned it." She still ate it. A small pause. She said it was good. Lincoln felt something tighten under his leather cut. "I believe her," he said. Maya gave the faintest hint of a smile. "She lies when she wants me to feel better," she said. "That's not lying," Lincoln replied quietly. "That's protecting." Maya considered that, then nodded. Minutes passed, then more. Time in hospitals didn't move normally. It stretched, folded, waited. A doctor finally stepped through the doors. Not the same one. Younger, tired family of Sarah Vance. The name landed between them. Maya looked up immediately. Lincoln stood. "Yes." The doctor glanced between the imposing biker and the small girl quickly, assessing. "She's stable for now," he said. "We're running tests, severe infection, likely pneumonia that's gone untreated for too long. She's dehydrated, malnourished." Each word came clinical, precise, heavy, but she's responding, the doctor added. "That's good." Maya let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Can we see her?" she asked. "Soon," the doctor said. "We need to get her settled first." He turned slightly to Lincoln. "Are you the next of kin?" Lincoln didn't hesitate. "Yes." The answer came before he could question it, before he could weigh it. It was simply true. "Then we'll need some paperwork," the doctor said. "Take care of it," Lincoln replied. The doctor nodded and stepped away. Silence returned. but it felt different now. Not as heavy, not as uncertain. Maya leaned back slightly in her chair, her shoulders loosening for the first time since they had arrived. "She's okay," she whispered. Lincoln looked at her. "She's not okay yet," he said gently. "But she's going to be," Maya nodded. That was enough. A nurse approached quietly, carrying a small cup and a wrapped sandwich. "For you," she said, offering it to Maya. Maya hesitated, then looked at Lincoln. He gave a small nod. "It's okay." She took it carefully. "Thank you," she said. The nurse smiled and walked away. Maya unwrapped the sandwich slowly, as if unsure whether it was really meant for her. She took a small bite, then another. Hungrier now. Lincoln watched quietly. "When was the last time you ate?" he asked. Maya thought. "I don't remember," she said. That answer stayed with him. He leaned back slightly in his chair, his gaze drifting toward the closed doors again. The same doors, always the same doors. But this time, he wasn't waiting alone. Maya finished half the sandwich, then stopped. "You can eat the rest later," Lincoln said. She nodded and wrapped it back up carefully. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a moment. "Yes." She looked at him directly. "Why didn't you come back?" The question was simple, but it didn't leave room for easy answers. Lincoln didn't respond immediately. He could have said he tried. He could have said he didn't know where to look. He could have said a lot of things. Instead, I told myself I did enough. He said quietly. Maya frowned slightly. Was it true? Lincoln looked at the floor for a moment, then back at her. No. Maya nodded, not judging, just understanding. Another silence passed. Then you came now, she said. Lincoln exhaled slowly. Yes. She leaned back slightly, her head resting against the chair. That counts, she murmured. Lincoln didn't know if it did, but for her, it seemed to be enough. And for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to believe that maybe it could be. The hallway outside Sarah's room was quieter now, not silent, but softened. The kind of quiet that only came after something urgent had been pulled back from the edge. Lincoln stood near the window at the far end of the corridor, his rough hands resting loosely in his denim pockets. The glass reflected his image faintly, layered over the dim Austin city lights beyond. For a moment, he watched that reflection instead of the world outside. It looked like him, but it didn't feel like him. Behind him, Maya sat in a chair just outside Sarah's room, her legs tucked slightly beneath her, the wrapped half of her sandwich still resting carefully in her lap. She hadn't touched it again, not because she wasn't hungry, but because she was waiting. Waiting had become something she was good at. A nurse passed by, offering a quiet smile as she checked the chart on the door before slipping inside. The door didn't close completely this time. It stayed slightly open. An invitation, or maybe a test. Lincoln turned back. You can go in, he said. Maya looked up quickly, almost as if she hadn't expected to hear it. Really? He nodded. She'll want to see you. That was all it took. Maya slid off the chair and moved toward the door, her steps careful, almost reverent, like entering the room required permission even after everything that had happened. Lincoln followed, but stopped just outside. Not out of hesitation. Out of instinct, the room was brighter than the hallway, but softer than the emergency ward. Machines hummed quietly. A monitor traced Sarah's heartbeat in steady, reassuring lines. Sarah lay propped slightly upright now, an oxygen tube resting beneath her nose. Her skin still carried the pale exhaustion from before. but there was something different in her breathing. More even. More present. Her eyes shifted as Maya stepped closer. "Hey," Sarah whispered. Maya didn't speak right away. She climbed gently onto the edge of the bed, careful not to disturb anything, and reached for her mother's hand. "You scared me," she said finally. Sarah's lips curved faintly. "I scare easily these days," she murmured. Maya shook her head. "That wasn't funny." "I know." The apology was quiet. "Real?" Maya tightened her grip slightly, as if confirming something. "You're staying?" "She asked for a while," Sarah said. Maya nodded, accepting that answer for what it was. Lincoln remained by the door, watching, not intruding, but not leaving either. Sarah's gaze drifted toward him after a moment. "You're still here," she said. Lincoln gave a small nod. "I said I would be," when Sarah studied him for a second longer than necessary. "People say a lot of things," she replied. Lincoln didn't argue. He stepped into the room slowly instead, his boots soft on the linoleum. "I signed the papers," he said. "They're continuing treatment. Whatever you need, it's covered." Sarah let out a slow breath, her eyes closing briefly, as if the weight of that sentence alone required energy to process. "You always did like solving things with cash," she said. Lincoln didn't react immediately. "Then it's not solving anything," he said quietly. "It's just removing one problem." Sarah opened her eyes again, looking at him more carefully this time. "That's new," she said. "What is?" "Admitting that money doesn't fix everything." Lincoln held her gaze. "It doesn't fix what I didn't do." The room fell still. Maya looked between them, not fully understanding, but feeling the shift in tone. Sarah didn't respond right away. She turned her head slightly toward Maya instead. "Did you eat?" she asked. Maya nodded. "A sandwich?" "Good." A pause. "You need to eat more than that." "I will." Sarah's fingers moved faintly in Maya's hand. "You always say that." Maya gave a small, almost shy smile, because it works. Sarah smiled back, then winced slightly. The movement caused her pain. Lincoln noticed immediately. "You need to rest," he said. Sarah didn't argue. That was new too. The nurse stepped back into the room quietly, checking the IV, adjusting something on the monitor. "She needs sleep," the nurse said gently. "Short visits for now." Maya looked reluctant, but she nodded. "I'll be right outside," she told her mother. Sarah squeezed her hand once. "I know." Maya slipped off the bed and walked toward the door. Lincoln stepped aside to let her pass, but before she left completely, Sarah spoke again. "Lincoln." He turned back. She was looking at him directly now, clearer than before, more present. "Don't disappear this time," she said. There was no anger in it, no accusation. Just a quiet statement, a boundary. Lincoln held her gaze. "I won't." Sarah studied him for a moment, as if deciding whether that answer belonged to the past or the present. Then she closed her eyes, not in dismissal. In acceptance, the nurse dimmed the light slightly. Lincoln stepped out into the hallway. Maya was already back in her chair, her posture straighter now. Less tense. "She's better," Maya said as soon as he approached. "She is," Lincoln replied. Maya looked down at her hands for a moment, then back up at him. "Are we staying here tonight?" Lincoln glanced down the corridor, at the doors, at the quiet. "Yes," he said. Maya nodded. "Okay." A small pause. Then, "Can I sit closer to the door?" Lincoln looked at her. "Why?" so I can hear if she needs something. The answer was immediate, instinctive. Lincoln hesitated. Then he moved his chair closer to the door. "Then I'll sit here too," he said. Maya blinked. "You don't have to." "I know." He sat down anyway, leather creaking softly. The hallway settled around them again, but this time it didn't feel as empty. Maya leaned back slightly, her head resting against the wall. "You really stayed," she said quietly. Lincoln looked ahead at the door at the thin line of light spilling through it. "Yes," he said. Maya closed her eyes slowly, not asleep, just resting, and for the first time since she had stood at his gate. She didn't look like she was waiting for something to go wrong. The night stretched longer than either of them expected. Hospitals had a way of bending time, minutes slipping into hours without warning. The steady hum of machines replacing any real sense of movement outside the narrow window at the end of the hallway. The city had gone quiet. Even the traffic had thinned, leaving behind only the occasional flicker of headlights passing in the distance. Lincoln hadn't moved. Not really. He sat in the same chair beside Maya, his posture relaxed but alert, as if leaving even for a moment might undo something important. Maya had drifted in and out of sleep, her head tilting slightly to one side, then correcting itself as she forced her eyes open again. "You can sleep," Lincoln said quietly. She shook her head without fully lifting it. "I don't want to miss anything." "You won't." She didn't argue, but she didn't close her eyes either. After a moment, Lincoln stood. "I'll be right back," he said. Maya's eyes opened immediately. "Where are you going?" "Just down the hall," he replied. "Coffee, maybe something for you to eat." "I'm okay," she said automatically. Lincoln gave her a look, not stern, just knowing. "I'll bring something anyway." She hesitated, then nodded once. "Okay." Lincoln walked down the corridor, his heavy footsteps quiet against the polished floor. The vending machines near the waiting area glowed faintly, offering the same options they always did. Simple, predictable, impersonal. He stood there for a moment, longer than necessary, staring at the rows of packaged food. When was the last time he had done something this ordinary? He couldn't remember. He bought 2 things anyway, another sandwich, a small carton of juice, and a cup of black coffee that was more habit than need. On his way back, he passed a nurse reviewing a chart. "How is she?" Lincoln asked. The nurse looked up. "Stronger than when she came in," she said. "That's a good sign." But he pressed. The nurse gave a small, understanding look. "She waited too long," she said. "Recovery won't be quick." Lincoln nodded. "I'm not in a hurry." The nurse smiled faintly. "That's good. She'll need time." Lincoln continued down the hall, the words settling deeper than he expected. Time. The one thing he had always had, and never used properly. When he returned, Maya was exactly where he left her. But her posture had changed. She was leaning slightly forward now, her eyes fixed on the door. "Did something happen?" Lincoln asked immediately. Maya shook her head. "No, I just heard her move." Lincoln set the food down beside her. "That's a good thing," he said. Maya nodded, then glanced at the sandwich. "You brought another one?" "Yes." She looked at it for a moment, then picked it up. "Thank you." Lincoln sat back down beside her. This time, she didn't hesitate. She ate slowly at first, then faster, not rushing, but no longer holding back. Lincoln didn't comment. He just watched quietly, making a mental note of how easily hunger hid itself in children who were used to having it. Halfway through, Maya stopped. "You're not eating," she said. "I'm fine." She frowned slightly. "That's what my mom says when she's not." Lincoln almost smiled. "Then I'll eat later," he said. Maya studied him for a second longer, then nodded, accepting it. The hallway grew quieter, the kind of quiet that came just before morning. After a while, Maya spoke again. "Can I ask you something?" Lincoln turned slightly toward her. "Yes," she hesitated. Then, "Why didn't my mom ever come here before?" The question was careful, not accusing, just searching. Lincoln exhaled slowly because places like this don't always feel like they're meant for everyone, he said. Maya frowned. "But they are. They should be," Lincoln corrected gently. She thought about that, then nodded. "My mom said hospitals are for people who can afford to be sick," she added quietly. Lincoln looked at her. "That's not how it's supposed to work." "But it does," Maya said. There was no bitterness in her voice, just observation. Lincoln didn't argue because she wasn't wrong. After a moment, Maya leaned back again, her head resting lightly against his leather arm. This time without asking. Lincoln stilled for half a second, then let it happen. No correction. No distance, just presence. "Are you going to leave?" she asked softly. The question came out differently this time. Not urgent, not afraid, just needing to know. Lincoln looked straight ahead at the door, at the faint light still glowing beneath it. "No," he said. Maya didn't respond right away. Then, okay, that was all. But it carried more trust than anything else she had given him so far. Minutes passed, then longer. The sky outside the window began to shift, the deep Texas black softening into a faint gray. Morning, slow, uncertain, but coming. A doctor stepped out of Sarah's room. Not hurried this time, measured. Lincoln stood immediately. "How is she?" The doctor glanced at his chart. "She's resting," he said. "Vitals are improving. We'll keep her under observation, but she made it through the worst of the night." Lincoln nodded once. "Thank you." The doctor gave a small smile. "Thank her," he said. "She's stronger than she looks." He moved on. Lincoln sat back down. Maya was watching him. "She's okay?" she asked. "She's going to be," he said. Maya let out a breath. Then, without thinking, she reached for his rough hand. Small, warm, certain. Lincoln didn't pull away. Outside, the first light of morning touched the edge of the city. And for the first time in a long time, something in Lincoln Vance's life felt like it wasn't slipping away. It was beginning. Morning didn't arrive all at once. It crept in slowly through the narrow window at the end of the hallway, across the polished floor, softening the edges of everything it touched. The harshness of the night before began to fade, replaced by something quieter. Not relief. Not yet, but something close to it. Maya stirred first. Her head had slipped fully against Lincoln's arm at some point during the early hours, her small hand still loosely wrapped around his. When she opened her eyes, she didn't move right away. She just blinked, adjusting to the light as if making sure the world she woke up to was still the same one she had fallen asleep in. "You stayed," she murmured. Lincoln glanced down at her. "I said I would." Maya pushed herself upright slowly, rubbing her eyes with the back of her hand. For a moment, she looked younger than she had the entire night before. Just a child, not someone who had crossed a city alone, not someone who had learned how to wait in silence. "Can we see her now?" she asked. Lincoln looked toward the door. The light beneath it was still on. "Let's check," he said. They both stood. This time, Maya didn't hesitate. She reached for his hand first. Lincoln noticed but didn't comment. He simply held on. They stepped into the room together. Sarah was awake. Not fully, not strong, but awake. Her eyes shifted toward the door as it opened. And when she saw Maya, something in her expression softened immediately. "Hey," Sarah whispered. Maya moved quickly to her side. "I'm here," she said, climbing carefully onto the chair beside the bed. "I didn't go anywhere." "I know," Sarah replied. Her voice was still weak, but steadier than before. That alone was enough to change the room. Lincoln stayed a few steps back at first, watching, measuring, not because he didn't belong, but because he wasn't used to belonging in moments like this. "How do you feel?" Maya asked. Sarah gave a faint smile like I got into a fight with an 18-wheeler. "And lost." Maya frowned. "You didn't lose." Sarah looked at her. No, Maya said firmly. "You're still here." That settled it. Sarah's smile deepened slightly, though it cost her. "Then I guess I didn't." Lincoln stepped closer. "Doctor says you'll be here a few days," he said. "They want to monitor you." Sarah glanced at him. "Few days sounds expensive." "It's handled." "Of course it is." There was no bite in her tone, just acknowledgement. Lincoln didn't push further. Instead, he reached for the chart at the end of the bed, scanning it briefly, not because he needed to understand every detail, but because it gave him something to do with the weight of being there. Maya watched both of them, then quietly. "Are we staying here too?" Lincoln looked at her. "Yes." "For how long?" As long as it takes." Maya nodded. That answer made sense to her. Time to her had never been measured in schedules, only in what was needed. A nurse stepped in a moment later, smiling softly as she checked the monitors. "Good morning," she said. "Looks like we have a little more life in here today." Sarah gave a faint nod. "Working on it," the nurse turned to Maya. "And you must be the reason." Maya hesitated. "Then maybe," she said. The nurse smiled. "Maybe is enough." She adjusted the IV, checked Sarah's pulse, then stepped back. "We'll have a doctor come by soon," she added. But for now, rest. When she left, the room felt quieter again. But not empty, different. Lincoln leaned slightly against the wall, his arms folding loosely. Not closed off, just grounded. Maya looked at him. "Do you have to go to work today?" she asked. The question caught him off guard. Work? The shop? For a second, it felt like something from another life. "No," he said. Maya blinked. "You don't?" "No. Why?" Lincoln considered the question, then answered simply because I'm needed here. Maya studied him for a moment, then nodded. "That makes sense." Sarah watched the exchange quietly. "You always had a schedule," she said to Lincoln. Even when you didn't need one, Lincoln gave a small, almost self-aware exhale. "Schedules are easier than people." Sarah raised an eyebrow faintly, and now? Lincoln glanced at Maya, then back at her. "Now I'm trying something harder." Sarah didn't respond, but something in her expression shifted. Not fully trust. Not yet, but something that leaned in that direction. Maya slid off the chair and moved closer to Lincoln. "Can we get her something?" she asked quietly. "Like real food?" Lincoln looked at Sarah. The question mattered. "Doctor will decide," he said, "but we'll ask." Maya nodded, satisfied. Then she did something small but new. She reached for Lincoln's hand again, not out of fear, not out of uncertainty, just naturally, as if it belonged there now. Lincoln looked down at her hand in his, then back up, and didn't let go. Outside, the morning had fully arrived. Light filled the room now, not harsh, not overwhelming, just enough to make everything visible, clear, honest, and for the first time, there was nothing in this room that needed to be hidden. The doctor arrived just after 8, not rushed, not uncertain. The kind of presence that came from years of doing the same job under pressure and learning how to carry calm into every room. He introduced himself simply, shook Lincoln's large hand, nodded to Maya, then moved toward Sarah's bed with quiet efficiency. "How are we feeling this morning?" he asked. Sarah gave a faint shrug like I survived something I didn't sign up for. The doctor smiled slightly. "That's accurate." He checked her chart, listened to her breathing, adjusted the monitor with small, practiced movements. "Your lungs are still inflamed," he said, "but you responded well overnight. That's the important part." Sarah glanced at Lincoln. "He keeps saying that because it's true," the doctor replied. A pause. "Then you're not out of this yet," he added, his tone shifting just enough to ground the moment. "But you're past the most dangerous point." Maya let out a quiet breath beside the bed. Lincoln noticed. He didn't say anything, but he heard it. "What happens next?" Lincoln asked. The doctor turned toward him. "We keep her here for observation," he said. "IV, antibiotics, fluids, respiratory support if needed. After that, recovery depends on consistency, meaning Lincoln pressed, meaning she'll need proper care when she leaves," the doctor said. "Medication, follow-ups, nutrition, stability." The last word lingered. Not medical, not technical, personal. Lincoln nodded once. "She'll have it." The doctor studied the imposing biker briefly, then gave a small, approving nod. "I'll hold you to that." He finished his notes, then turned toward Maya. "And you," he said gently. "You did the right thing bringing her here." Maya looked down slightly. "I didn't bring her," she said. "I found him." The doctor glanced at Lincoln, then back at Maya. "Same difference," he said with a faint smile. When he left, the room felt quieter again, but more defined. There were no more unknowns now, just steps. Clear, necessary. Sarah shifted slightly in the bed, her eyes following the door as it closed. "Stability," she repeated softly. Lincoln leaned slightly forward. "You'll have it." Sarah gave him a look. Not skeptical, not convinced either. "You say things like that easily," she said. "I don't say them lightly." A small silence followed. Maya watched both of them again, her gaze moving carefully, as if piecing together something she didn't yet have the words for. "Does that mean we don't go back?" she asked. The question landed differently, more permanent. Lincoln turned to her. "You don't have to go back there," he said. Maya blinked. "Not at all." "No." She looked at Sarah. Sarah didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied Lincoln longer this time, weighing something deeper than just the offer. "You understand what you're saying?" Sarah asked quietly. "Yes. This isn't a weekend visit," she continued. "This isn't charity. I know this is responsibility." Lincoln held her gaze. "I know that too." The room stilled. Maya didn't move, didn't speak. She just waited because this part mattered more than anything. Sarah exhaled slowly, her strength still limited, but her clarity sharper now. "You rode away once," she said. Lincoln didn't interrupt. "You didn't come back," she added. "I know, and now you're here because she found you." Lincoln glanced briefly at Maya, then back at Sarah. "Yes." Another pause. Then, "What happens when things get complicated again?" Sarah asked. The question wasn't loud, but it cut deeper than anything else. Lincoln didn't answer right away because this time he wasn't going to respond with something easy. "I stay," he said finally. Simple, direct, no explanation, no defense. Sarah studied him, searching for hesitation, for cracks, for anything that would tell her this was temporary. She didn't find it, not clearly, but enough. Maya shifted slightly closer to the bed. "So we stay with you?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Lincoln nodded. "Yes." Maya looked down at her hands, then back up. "Do we have to be quiet there?" she asked. The question caught him off guard. "Why would you have to be quiet?" "In some places you do," she said. Lincoln shook his head. "No, you don't have to be anything other than yourself." Maya considered that, then gave a small nod. "Okay." Sarah watched her daughter, then looked back at Lincoln. "She's not easy," Sarah said. Lincoln's expression softened slightly. She shouldn't have to be. Sarah let out a faint breath. "That's not what I meant." "I know," he said. Another silence settled, but this one felt different, less guarded, more transitional. Maya climbed carefully back onto the chair beside the bed, her hand finding Sarah's again. "Can we bring her things?" she asked. "From the room?" Lincoln's jaw tightened slightly. "That room? That place?" "No," he said gently. "Well, get new things." Maya hesitated. "My sweater is there." Lincoln looked at her. "Then we'll get you a better one." She thought about that, then nodded. "Okay." It wasn't about the sweater. It was about what it meant to leave, to not go back. Lincoln understood that more than she realized. A nurse entered again, carrying a small tray. "Time for medication," she said softly. Maya moved aside without being asked. Lincoln stepped back slightly, giving space, but not distance. As Sarah took the medication, her eyes flicked once more toward Lincoln. "Don't make promises you don't keep," she said quietly. Lincoln met her gaze. "I'm not." This time, there was no hesitation. The room settled again. Outside, the hospital continued its steady rhythm. Inside, something had shifted. Not fully resolved, not complete, but moving for the first time in years. Not away, but forward. The afternoon settled in slowly, stretching the hours into something quieter, but no less significant. By midday, the hospital room no longer felt like a place of crisis. The machine still hummed, the IV still dripped with steady precision, but the urgency had softened into something more manageable, something that allowed space for thought. And thought, Lincoln realized, was far more dangerous. He stood by the window now, looking down at the Austin streets below. People moved in small, distant patterns, cars stopping, starting, lives continuing without interruption. It was strange how normal everything looked from above, as if nothing had changed, but everything had. Behind him, Maya sat cross-legged in the chair, carefully unwrapping a small packet of crackers the nurse had brought earlier. She broke one in half, then paused. "Do you want some?" she asked. Lincoln turned slightly. "No, you go ahead." She nodded, then ate quietly, her movements deliberate, unhurried across from her. Sarah rested against the raised hospital bed, eyes half open, watching them both in that quiet, observant way she had. "You don't sit still." "Well," Sarah said after a moment. Lincoln glanced back at her. "I sit still when I need to. You've been standing for 20 minutes. He didn't deny it. Instead, he moved back toward the chair beside Maya and sat down. "Better?" he asked. Sarah gave a faint smile marginally. Maya looked between them, a small flicker of something lighter crossing her face. Not quite laughter, but close. The room had begun to change, not just physically, but in tone. It no longer felt like a place they were visiting. It felt temporary, like something that would lead somewhere else. "So what happens after this?" Maya asked suddenly. Lincoln looked at her. "After what?" She gestured slightly around the room. "After she gets better." The question lingered. Sarah shifted slightly, her attention sharpening despite her fatigue. Lincoln leaned forward, resting his tattooed forearms lightly on his knees. "We don't rush that," he said. "First she gets stronger, and then Maya pressed." Lincoln paused, then answered carefully. "Then we figure out what comes next, together." Maya studied him. "Together means all of us." Yes, that seemed to matter a lot. She nodded slowly, absorbing it. Sarah watched him closely. "You've changed your language," she said. Lincoln glanced at her. "How you used to say things like, 'I'll handle it.'" She said, "Now it's we." Lincoln considered that. "I think I misunderstood what taking care of something meant," he said. Sarah didn't respond right away. "Then, that's one way to put it." A quiet settled again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was reflective. Maya leaned back in her chair, her boots swinging slightly now. Small, unconscious movements that hadn't been there before. She was relaxing, little by little. "Is your house really big?" she asked. Lincoln looked at her. "Yes. How big?" He hesitated. "Then big enough that you might get lost if you don't know where you're going." Maya's eyes widened slightly. "Really?" "Yes." She thought about that, then smiled faintly. "Then you'll have to show me." Lincoln nodded. "I will." Sarah watched the exchange, something softer settling into her expression. "You're already planning," she said. "I'm preparing," Lincoln corrected. "For what?" Lincoln glanced at Maya for not making the same mistake twice. That quieted the room again. Sarah held his gaze. This time, there was less resistance there. Not gone, but less. A knock sounded lightly on the door before a hospital administrator stepped in. Clipboard in hand, posture professional but respectful. "Mr. Vance," she said, "we finalized the admission and care plan. Everything is in place." Lincoln stood. "Good." She glanced briefly at Sarah, then Maya, her expression softening just slightly. "If you need anything else, please let us know." "We will," Lincoln replied. She nodded and stepped out. Maya watched her leave. "They talk to you differently," she said. Lincoln looked down at her. "How so?" "Like they're careful," she said. "Like they don't want to say the wrong thing." Lincoln considered that. "Sometimes people think being careful is the same as being respectful," he said. Maya frowned slightly. "Is it?" "Not always." She nodded, filing that away somewhere. Another small lesson. Another piece of the world being explained in a way she could understand. Sarah shifted again, her breathing steady but still shallow. "You should rest too," she said to Maya. "I'm not tired." "You are?" Maya hesitated. "Then maybe a little." Lincoln stood again. "I'll find somewhere for you to lie down." Maya looked at him. "You'll stay?" "Yes." "You promise?" Lincoln met her eyes. Yes, that was enough. He stepped out briefly, speaking quietly with a nurse. Minutes later, he returned with a small pillow and a folded blanket. Maya watched him closely as he set them up on the chair, turning it slightly so she could lean more comfortably. "You've done this before," she said. Lincoln paused, then shook his head. "No." She tilted her head. "Then how do you know what to do?" Lincoln looked at her, then at Sarah, then back at Maya. "I'm paying attention," he said. Maya nodded. "That works." She climbed into the chair, curling slightly under the blanket, the pillow tucked beneath her head. Within minutes, her breathing softened. Sleep came easier now because she wasn't waiting anymore. Lincoln stood beside her for a moment longer, then turned back toward Sarah. "She trusts you," Sarah said quietly. Lincoln didn't look away. "I know that's not something you can afford to break." "I won't." Sarah studied him, and for the first time she believed him just enough to close her eyes without saying anything more. The room settled again. Afternoon light shifted across the floor, and Lincoln Vance stood in the middle of it, not as a man who had everything under control, but as someone who had finally chosen to stay. The late afternoon faded into evening almost without notice. The light in the room shifted from bright gold to a muted gray, shadows stretching longer across the floor, settling into the corners like quiet witnesses. The hospital, which had hummed steadily all day, seemed to slow just slightly, as if even it needed a moment to breathe. Maya was still asleep, curled gently in the chair, the blanket tucked beneath her chin, one small hand resting loosely against her cheek. Her breathing was even now, unguarded in a way it hadn't been before. She wasn't listening for danger anymore. She wasn't waiting for something to go wrong. She was just sleeping. Lincoln stood nearby, watching her for a moment longer than necessary. There was something unfamiliar about it. Not the act of watching, but the reason. He wasn't observing. He was making sure that was new. Behind him, Sarah shifted slightly in the bed. "You're staring," she murmured, her voice quiet but awake. Lincoln turned. "She hasn't moved in a while. She's sleeping." Sarah replied, "I know." Sarah studied him for a moment, her eyes clearer now than they had been that morning. "You didn't know what that looked like before," she said. It wasn't a question. Lincoln didn't deny it. "No," he said. Sarah gave a faint nod. "That makes sense." And a small silence followed. Not uncomfortable. Just honest. Lincoln moved back toward the chair beside her bed and sat down. This time, without hesitation, without needing to be told. Sarah watched him settle. "You stayed all day," she said. "Yes, no calls, no rushing out, no one interrupting you. I told my crew not to." Sarah raised an eyebrow slightly. "You can do that?" Lincoln almost smiled. "Yes." She let out a quiet breath. "Must be nice." He didn't answer right away, because he understood what she meant. Not just about control, about choice. The kind of choice she hadn't had in a long time. "Sarah?" he said after a moment. She looked at him. "I should have done more," he said. The words didn't come easily. They weren't polished. They weren't framed in the way he usually spoke. They were direct, and that made them heavier. Sarah didn't respond immediately. She looked at him carefully, measuring not just the words, but the biker saying them. "You should have," she said. "No softness, no cushioning, just truth." Lincoln nodded once. "I know." Another pause. Then Sarah shifted slightly, adjusting her position with effort. "You came once," she said. "You saw how we were living." Lincoln's gaze dropped briefly. "I didn't understand what I was seeing." "You didn't want to," she corrected. That landed and stayed. Lincoln didn't argue. "I told myself it wasn't my place." He said. Sarah let out a faint breath. "That's the thing about family," she said quietly. "It doesn't wait for you to decide if it's your place." The room stilled. Maya shifted slightly in her sleep, her hand tightening briefly around the blanket before relaxing again. Lincoln glanced at her, then back at Sarah. "I'm here now," he said. Sarah held his gaze. "For how long?" she asked. Lincoln didn't hesitate this time. As long as it takes. Sarah watched him closely, looking for hesitation, for doubt, for anything that would suggest this was temporary. She didn't find it. Not clearly, not enough to dismiss it. "Maya believes you," she said. "I know she doesn't get that wrong often." Lincoln nodded. "I won't make her wrong this time." That was the first time something in Sarah's expression softened without resistance, not fully, but enough. "You're going to have to learn fast," she said. "I am." "She's not like you." "I know. She notices everything." Lincoln glanced toward Maya again. "I've started to see that." Sarah's lips curved faintly. "She'll test you." Lincoln almost smiled. "She already has." That earned a quiet breath of something close to a laugh. It didn't last long, but it mattered. The room settled again. Evening now fully in place. Lights dimmed slightly. The world outside reduced to distant shapes and faint reflections. After a while, Maya stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, blinking against the softer light. For a second, she looked confused. Then she saw them, both of them, in the same place. Still there. "You're still here?" she murmured. Lincoln leaned slightly forward. "Yes." Sarah gave a faint smile. "Where else would we be?" Maya pushed herself upright, the blanket slipping slightly as she sat up straighter. "I didn't miss anything?" she asked. "No," Lincoln said. "Nothing important." Maya looked between them. Something had changed. She could feel it, even if she didn't have the words yet. "You talked," she said. Sarah nodded. "We did." "About what?" Sarah glanced at Lincoln, then back at Maya. "About staying." Maya's eyes widened slightly. "Staying together?" Lincoln met her gaze. "Yes." The word settled gently but firmly. Maya looked down at her hands for a moment, then back up. "Okay," she said. No hesitation, no fear, just acceptance. Because this time she believed it, and Lincoln knew that belief was something he couldn't afford to lose. Not again. Morning returned again, but this time it didn't feel uncertain. It felt earned. Soft light filtered through the hospital blinds, stretching across the room in long, quiet lines. The machine still hummed. The IV still ticked steadily beside Sarah's bed. But something fundamental had changed. Nothing here felt temporary anymore. Maya was already awake. She sat near the window now, knees pulled close to her chest, watching the world outside with a kind of stillness that didn't come from fear, but from thought. Lincoln noticed it immediately. "You're," he said. Maya didn't turn right away. "I'm thinking," she replied. "That can be dangerous," he said lightly. She glanced back at him. I know that almost made him smile. Sarah stirred slightly in the bed, her breathing steady, her strength returning in small, measurable ways. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Maya hesitated, then answered honestly. "What happens when we leave here?" The question settled into the room. Not heavy, but important. Lincoln stepped closer, resting one tattooed hand lightly on the back of the chair near her. "We leave together," he said. Maya nodded. "But then what?" Lincoln didn't answer immediately because this time the answer mattered. Not just what he said, but what he meant. "We go somewhere safe," he said finally. "Somewhere stable." Maya looked at him. "Your compound?" Yes, she considered that. "Then will it feel like this?" she asked. Lincoln frowned slightly. "Like what? Like people stay?" she said. The question landed deeper than anything else she had asked so far. Sarah watched him carefully, waiting not for the answer. For the truth, Lincoln took a breath, then stepped closer fully into the space between both of them. "It will," he said. No hesitation, no distance. Maya studied his face, the way children do when they are deciding whether to believe something that matters. Then she nodded. Okay, that was it. No more questions, because for her that was enough. A doctor entered shortly after reviewing Sarah's chart, with a quiet sense of progress. "You're improving faster than expected," he said. "If everything continues like this, we can start planning discharge within a few days." Sarah raised an eyebrow slightly. "Already?" "Recovery doesn't stop when you leave," the doctor replied. "It just changes location." Lincoln nodded. "We'll be ready." The doctor glanced at him. "I'm counting on that." He turned to Maya. "You'll have a job too," he said gently. Maya blinked. "I will make sure she follows instructions," he said. Maya nodded seriously. "I can do that." The doctor smiled faintly and left. The room settled again. But now there was direction, a path forward. Sarah shifted slightly, her gaze moving between Lincoln and Maya. "You really thought this through?" she said. Lincoln shook his head. "I'm still learning. That's new." "I know." Maya slid off the chair and walked over to the bed, resting her chin lightly against the mattress. "Are we going to bring our stuff?" she asked. Lincoln looked at her. "No." Maya hesitated. "Not even my sweater." Lincoln knelt slightly so he was at her level. "We're not going back to that place," he said gently. "We're starting somewhere new." Maya looked down for a moment, then back up. "Will I get new things?" "Yes, all of them." "Yes." She thought about that, then nodded. Okay. It wasn't about the things. It was about what they meant. Sarah watched them both. Something quiet and unresolved finally settling into something closer to acceptance. "You're really doing this?" she said to Lincoln. "Yes." "No." "Halfway." "No." She held his gaze. Then good. That was the closest thing to trust she had given him, and it was enough. Maya climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed again. This time, without hesitation, her hand slipping into Sarah's. Then after a second, she reached for Lincoln's hand too, pulling both of them together. Not perfectly, not easily, but intentionally. Lincoln looked down at her small hand, connecting them, then at Sarah, then back at Maya. And for the first time, he understood something clearly. This wasn't about fixing the past. It wasn't about making up for what he had missed. It was about what he chose now. Every day, every moment, Maya looked up at him. "Do you remember me now?" she asked softly. The question was different this time. Not testing, not fragile, just real. Lincoln felt something tighten in his chest. Not pain, something deeper, something that stayed. He knelt fully now, bringing his large frame level with her, his voice steady but quieter than before. "I remember what I should have seen," he said. Maya watched him. "And now?" she asked. Lincoln gently squeezed her hand. "Now I remember everything that matters." Maya smiled. Not wide, not dramatic, just enough, and that was more than anything else. Outside, the blazing Texas light had fully settled into the day. Inside, nothing was perfect, nothing was finished, but something had begun. Not because the past had been repaired, but because they had chosen not to look away anymore. This story reminds us that sometimes the greatest failures in life are not caused by cruelty, but by quiet neglect. The moments we choose not to look closer, not to ask one more question, not to return when we should. It teaches that being too busy can become a form of abandonment, especially to those who depend on us the most. Yet, it also offers hope. It is never too late to show up, to take responsibility, and to choose love over distance. True family is not defined by perfection or timing, but by the courage to stay, to care, and to never turn away again once we finally see what truly matters. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration.